We can talk about the 5-year program, maybe. So basically, this Ear Whisper community is online, but it's nice to once a year to get together and retreat, really focusing on the specific practices. And also, we are integrating all different aspects of the practice. Of course, when we talk about the lineage practice, for example, Chod practice, we start with a preliminary, but preliminary means not like 100,000 of this, 100,000 that you might be familiar with. No, we are trying to establish the working basis for Vajrayana and the Chod practice. So start with 5 Dakini retreat. So that will happen next spring. So in terms of lineage practice, I was taught like everything integrated into that one practice. Of course, when I practice one practice, everything is happening simultaneously. For example, the mind which practice the Vajrayana, for example, Idam practice is Mahamudra and Dzogchen point of view, or you can say completion stage, mind practicing the generation stage. And also Shamatha, Vipassana, all are integrated in one practice. So quite a rich practice. So we're gonna learn the step by step. We are really interested in the facilitating the individuation. See, just looking at these faces, all are different, coming from a different background, already have some practices and already have maybe realizations and understanding, all different kind of bring to this practice. That's granted. So everybody have a different, momentum. So yeah, in that sense, we are not just provide one practice and then move on. No. So as I said, we are more interested in one personal understanding and realization. So in that sense, whatever way we can facilitate, we do our best. So there are 3 pillars you might have read on the website. So the transmission, authenticity, and unbroken transmission, that's one thing. And we would like to kind of carry and then pass it on to you. And then now your turn to put your whatever understanding and coming from your practice, your own practice, put in there. Then maybe you pass on to the next generation. That's first one. Then the second one, the personal journey. I really emphasize, sometimes we have this feeling about spiritual practice here and then personal journey here or human journey here. No, we are really integrated. We cannot separate. We cannot draw a line. So that's kind of quite an emphasis here in the spiritual journey. And then the third one is this community, or you can say preservation. So those 3 things. So in the terms of 5 years, we come to the 108 spring culmination retreat, the 108 spring retreat, which will be a quite practice. But so that's option. So 5-year program is to the preparation for that Tomanamo practice and wandering 108 wandering retreat. See, we are living in the 21st century, right? So the definition of the, for example, channel ground might be different. We don't need to go all the way to Mongolia or somewhere, exotic place near the channel ground and do those practice. That place which scares you. Or, so So lots to talk about those things. Mm. What's your channel ground? What's the place that scares you? And so forth. Okay, so anything would you like to talk about the 5-year program?
Sure. So I just like to recognize, I mean, there are so many things that are so unique about this. To start off, of course, it is a very yogic lineage. And I guess you could say it's coming through the Gurupka school, although it's also been received by Lama Tsongkhapa, and often that is associated with the scholastic disciplines, but it's clearly Lama Tsongkhapa was an incredibly achieved yogi in his own right, and there are lineages within that school that are transmitting that particular emphasis. So I think that's quite amazing. It's also quite amazing to have a full cycle in Chod Machik. There are a few, but not very many, and it's really hard to be able to follow them. And so I think you really gone out of your way to make it accessible for householders. And in striving to do that, it's really striking a balance because we want to keep it authentically. So we have to get together. One of the jewels is, of course, the Sangha. So that's one aspect, but also to provide the transmissions and empowerments, not just to reading transmissions to lungs, but the actual empowerments in a proper, traditional, authentic way to keep it untainted, the spring, as it were. And so that's one of the aspects we're doing. And so in the 5-year program, there are really two important events. One is getting together for a week once a year, which we're doing in Sweden, and then we're doing an online retreat like we're doing now. And then in addition to that, we're getting together on Sundays to practice. And I think you'll discover that there is something particular in how the teachings are being conveyed in this lineage. And I find it to be very integrated, very concrete, and also very manifested. And so it's not just the practice itself, it's also going through things like how the Dhammaru is kept and what the particular characteristics of the Dhammaru in this particular lineage is as well. So it's very experiential, it's very hands-on, it's really taught, I find, from a point of view of experience. And so, for instance, some of the visualizations, it's not so much that you are generating them with your creative mind, it's more that they are arising spontaneously from the practice. So there's small things like that that really are reflecting the characteristics of the yogic emphasis of this lineage, which is quite amazing. And being a small community, it's also very easy, of course, to get support, and we try to be flexible and adaptive while not compromising with the authenticity of the lineage. So that's also one particular aspect. And as you've been saying, we are coming from different backgrounds to different lineages and practices, and there is really no contradiction at all. There's really no commitments or anything that will conflict with whatever you're doing. A practitioner, you can just keep doing that. And I think that's also was initially in the 19th century Lamrim movement also very clear that you can keep all the practices, you honor each one within its own context and how it's being taught and how it's being practiced there. But here the emphasis is not so much on the form of the lineage, but actually the essence, the essential practice itself. So I find it really non-problematic in terms of anything else that I already have from other lineages and practices and teachers and so on. So it's more of a challenge than perhaps of finding the time and prioritizing the practice to be able to build upon it. I think that's the main thing. The retreat in Sweden, it's really quite a wonderful place. It's a historic site. It's a mansion with a small lake and an island that is part of the mansion. And the island is supposedly traditionally inhabited by a lot of local spirits called the Trolls Island, although in the last century it's also referred to the Island of Tranquility. So there are different aspects of that particular Nyensa or place of practice, which is quite amazing as well. It's big, it's spacious, it's really a great place. We looked really hard to find the best possible place to really have an enjoyable time together as well, of course. April 26th through May 2nd. It's about 1 hour outside of Stockholm, and Stockholm has the main international airport in Sweden.
I just wanted to add one thing in terms of content of the retreat. So each retreat, I will teach based on the Lama Tsongkhapa, the 6 yoga of Naropa. So I'm going to draw one, I call Vajrayana technique. And so each retreat, I will integrate or interweave the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on 6 yoga. And so first one, I'm going to teach on Guru Yoga, focus on Guru Yoga. It's called diving into the river of blessing or something like that. Very important core, the most misunderstood and most important subject. So we're going to dive into the Guru Yoga teaching on the first retreat. Then maybe following just step by step, maybe the true call and the two more, and then pour and so forth. So I will teach on that. And then actually not only teaching, put into practice and together. All these completion stage. So basically we practice together the path of liberation, Doram, and the path of means, Tapram. You know, like Doram is like Mahamudran Dzogchen, and then Tapram is a Vajrayana practice, like a Eden practice, and generation and completion stages. We all practice together in each 1 week retreat. Then whole year, we're gonna try to put into practice at home, and then keep practicing. And also, we're gonna integrate all different things to with more body-oriented practice as well.
Yeah, I just like to emphasize that when we get together for Sunday for you, Monday morning for me, that weekly practice is for those who are in the 5-year program. It's really important. I think people have experienced a lot of transformational process experience through that. And it is really interesting that, so I spend a lot of time, you know, working on the visualization of this practice and trying to understand it. And when we practice, it does go out, as mentioned, it does go out of that. You're doing it, but it's like suddenly you're on this stage in this opera. And this process is almost happening by itself. And whatever personal work you've done, however you've hunkered into yourself, you know, to really look at yourself, it somehow plays out itself in with this beautiful, well, scary imagery, beautiful tunes, you know, hypnotic drumming. It all comes together in some very potent way. And I think, you know, that those of us who've been doing it, we've all experienced that. So I would just like to emphasize that again.